We are live right on time this time. This is episode 3594 of the Survival Podcast. It is Monday, December the 9th, and looking at the date, I know that we will not hit episode 3600 this week, but we will next week. Just those round numbered episodes seem to be kind of just monumental things, or just things that you pay attention to along the way. Anyway, I'm laughing at one of the comments. I'm gonna let it go. Anyway, for those of you in the live stream, if you have any questions today, it is going to be absolutely imperative that you follow the procedure. And we all should know the procedure by now. Just in case we don't, please put the word question as the first word of all questions in all caps. And if you do that, then I am more likely than not going to see it. And when I see it, I'll star it and I will get to it at the end. I want to do something right in the beginning here, though, for you that I meant to do all last week. Monday, a few folks anyway, were pretty generous with the super chats. And I ended up going really long, and I didn't get to acknowledge them, and I feel that that's wrong. So Amy B gave me a $20 super chat for gas money. Said, thanks, Jack. Got the cover crops course. Shameless plug. And JD Drafts $4.99 super chat said, I'm never getting another vaccine again. The same people bothered by that can look in the mirror if they wonder why. Additionally, we had one from Chicken Hawk Farmstead, $10 and said it's for gas money. So thank you to you folks. When people super chat me, it automatically stars what you did. So it goes in my follow-up list. And sometimes if we go long, we just don't get to Q&A. And when somebody does that, I want to at least say thank you. And people are saying blah, 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 tough shit, right? I take time to explain things and acknowledge people. Get over it. Anyway, what are we going to talk about today? The U.S. has destabilized Syria in the name of freedom. We're not the only ones involved with it. Israelis are involved. The Turkish are involved. But it's like we didn't learn anything. It's like we learned nothing. So we're going to talk about that. The American Diabetes Association says nothing trumps your lived experience, except when you tell them your lived experience. Well, if you're me anyway, you get blocked by them on X. My lived experience is I did exactly the opposite of all your dietary advice. You guys are partnered with DaVita, and they only make money treating end-stage renal failure. That means people that need a kidney transplant or they're going to die. And maybe people shouldn't listen to your advice. But they have a place where you can fill out a form and tell them your lived experience. And I think it would be good if every single person out there who has come back from borderline type 2 or type 2 diabetes and lost a bunch of weight and are much healthier now because they did the exact opposite of what the American Diabetes tells you to do, which is eat oatmeal and bagels, would let them know and fill out the form and do it nicely. Do it nicely. I can't tell you that I'm always nice when I do things like this. And when I get to my segment on this, I will admit that I have been, kind of a prong in the ass of the ADA for quite a while. And I do not fault them for banning me. I fault them for the fact that they won't have a discussion with all these doctors and all these people and their lived experience when they say what they care about is lived experience. So we'll talk about that. El Salvador's found trillions of dollars of gold. We'll talk about maybe what comes next and some news out about El Salvador that may or may not be true or may be partially true, which is probably more likely. Elon Musk, as part of his initial, sort of first pass, is running Doge, which is not the crypto shitcoin, but the Department of Government Efficiency has some thoughts on government computer systems. I have some of my own. Have you heard of PodSnacks? PodSnacks. When somebody told me about this at the workshop, my first inclination, and I don't like to be a dick, was my eyes involuntarily rolled in my head. I didn't hear pod. I heard something snacks, and I thought it was maybe some sort of, gimmick, like to live in your pod and eat the snacks as a survival food gimmick. It's actually a really cool service for podcasts. I'll tell you about it today and why you might want to try it. Trump says he's open to leaving NATO. I don't think we'll leave NATO. I'll tell you why we should when we get to that segment. And if you think getting into Bitcoin, it's too late, If I told you, well, I got into Bitcoin in 2014, you'd say, oh man, you got in early. I'm going to show you a graph that completely shows that from 2014 to today, the only advantage in getting in early was being in longer. That the upward projection of Bitcoin since about March to April of 2013 has been steady and constant. In other words, your gains are this. So my gains between 2020 and 2024 of newly purchased Bitcoin are about the same as my gains annualized from 2014 to 2024. And so is everybody else's. So you say, but you got in early. I lost the opportunity. I'm just going to show you you're full of shit. And I'm going to say something I've said many times to you guys. Again, you can make money or you can make excuses, but you can't do both. And don't tell me politicians do it, because politicians get results. Just because they're not the results you want doesn't mean they're not results. Moving on, we have some good news. Because of biochar and bacteria, we actually have at least the first steps and a working model of something called self-healing concrete. Imagine concrete, it's a little crack in it. If you don't do anything, what happens? The crack gets bigger and eventually the whole thing falls apart. Water gets in it, it freezes and thaws, and you know how that works. But what if that first crack grew back? What if it healed itself? Another funny thing about concrete, those types of cracks usually form early on, right? They, like soon after the pour. And the long-term problem really starts out early. So think about all that. Biochar, self-healing concrete? Yes, but we have to add bacteria. Sort of like we do in a soil, but a different kind of bacteria. This is really freaking cool. And I found a new news source on biochar that I'll be drawing from a lot, and I'll let you know about that as well. They also have a podcast, and I'll tell you when we get there. I have a question for you. We know this guy got shot in New York, CEO of United Healthcare, and they think they just found the guy that did it. They found him in Altoona, Pennsylvania at a McDonald's. And I'm glad they caught him. But I don't have a lot of sympathy for this guy, or maybe empathy is the word. I don't. Here's my question for you. Do you think if you or someone you loved that wasn't the CEO of a giant corporation, just a random person, was targeted and assassinated right in front of a camera on the streets of New York, that it would have been on Fox News 24/7 up until they found the guy, and then they would do continuing coverage, breathless, continuous coverage? Do you think there'd be an FBI manhunt if it was you or your wife or your kid that got shot this way? And what does that say about us? Not just our government, but us as a society. We're going to talk about that. Then Daniel Penny. I was in and out on covering this today, but now that we have a verdict and we can actually talk with intelligence about it instead of speculating like the Fox News idiots going, well, what it means. They brought an expert in on Friday when they continued the trial, and they said, well, what does it mean? And they said, well, what it means is the trial's not over. Thanks a lot, Dipstick. I really appreciate you coming up with something to fill the gap in like your mind with. It's not no shit. We'll talk about that, but I want to talk about why I think the judge and the prosecutor both belong in fucking prison, not jail. See, jail's short term. No, these two people belong in fucking prison. They won't go, but I'll tell you why they should. And as much as the prosecutor belongs in prison, this judge, for about 10 minutes of the way he conducted himself in his own courtroom, belongs impeached and in prison. It really does. And when I explain why, if you don't get it, you don't want to. And then I want to finish up with something. America is sick, not by genetics, not by accident, not by happenstance. This country is sick by design, which means your only way out of sickness and illness, especially chronic long duration problems, is to design your way out of it, just like they designed your way into it. And I have a little challenge I'm going to throw out today. We're heading for the end of the year. This is where everybody starts this shit. Well, Christmas is coming anyway. And I'm going to have parties and stuff I'm going to go into and drinking and eating stuff that's not good for me, and I know that. So I'm going to start after the new year. New year resolution, get in shape this year. I'm going to tell you why, if you want to succeed this time, start now. And I'm going to tell you your excuse about, but at Christmas, when I go to my mom's or my dad's or my cousin's or my uncle's former roommate or whatever, I'm going to eat cake. Go ahead and eat the fucking cake. It's not the excuse you think it is. I'll explain it all. And hopefully we'll get you guys revved up. And then when I'm gone between Christmas and New Year's, and I have some rewinds for you, a few of those are going to help you on that journey. But I don't want you to wait. I want you, if you really want to change your life and design your way out of sickness and illness. And if you're young and all cocky because you're not sick yet, keep living the way that this country naturally leads you to live. And you will be. And I promise you, I can tell you from experience, sitting here now in the health that I'm in today and the health that I wasn't in 6 years ago, the longer you wait, the harder it is. Before we do that, let's go ahead and hear from our sponsors of the day. Sponsor of the day number one today is Canine Academy. That's Joel Ryle's organization there. And I'd like to encourage you to do something today to truly understand how valuable this training can be. I'd like you to go to canineacademy.us. It'd be great if you use the link on my website, thesurvivalpodcast.com, so I get credit for it, even though it's no money involved today. But if you scroll down, if you go into the courses and scroll down, you'll see that the last course offered is a problem-solving library, okay? And I want to just tell you what you get in the problem-solving library. How to stop your dog from running away, how to correct a bad habit in a specific area, how to stop your dog from whining, how much time do you spend training each day, how to stop your dog from playing with their food and water bowl, what if my dog bites at me, and how do you stop your dog from jumping up? That's a pretty good little mini course to get started with basic canine obedience. You know what it costs you? No money at all. It is free. Why don't you go out and take that course today? See how Joel teaches, and if you like it, then consider at least enrolling in Canine Academy Basics, and you will be able to train most dogs to do most things with just that. If you want ongoing instruction, he has 2 more options for you, but definitely check out Canine Academy. Next up today, the Wealth Steading Podcast. That's John Pugliano, and he is an amazing investment manager. And he does a podcast about once a week, once every other week, called the Wealth Steading Podcast, where you can learn how you can use a holistic lifestyle to build and preserve your wealth. What I say is you can learn to grow your wealth the way we grow food in the garden at the Wealth Steading Podcast. And John is one of us guys. He's been around here a long time. He really has. I first met John in Salt Lake City, Utah, at a prepper convention in 2010. That's 14 years ago, and I'm still working with them. I don't know what's more impressive, but I'll let someone hang out for 14 years without getting tired of them, or they won't get tired of me and go away after 14 years. I'm sorry, 10 years. It really is a long time to deal with me. So John's an amazing dude. He's also a ham radio operator and a real old school prepper at the same time. He's one of us. But yet he's also a great investment manager for your money. All right, so let's start off with, I said we got good and bad news today. As per usual with our world and our society today, there's an abundance of bad news. But the United States, no matter what anybody tells you, is deeply involved in getting rid of Assad in Syria. It says this headline, and specifically here from Axios, says that the U.S. is working to destroy Syria's remaining chemical weapons. That's what the officials say. Apparently, we did it through Israel, because Israel announced this morning that they've succeeded. They have destroyed all of Assad's chemical weapons. They've destroyed all of Assad's ammunition storage facilities. They've destroyed all of Assad's air defense systems. Everything's gone. Everything's completely destroyed. Now, first of all, here's what I'd like to know. Here's what I'd like to know. How do you know you got it all? You notice that every time that something like this ever happens, they say, we got all the weapons. Like a couple of months later, they show up in Somalia or something, or in Eastern Europe or something like that in the hands of terrorists. Have you ever noticed that? But I'm going to let that go. I'm not really worried so much about the fact that they claim that they got all of it and they probably didn't. I care that we're involved. Why are we involved in this shit again? Can't we leave anything alone? I feel like the United States is a spoiled fat kid sitting at the table that wants more of this other kind of food, and there's no mom to say, you haven't finished your last food yet. You're not done with your other wars. You don't get to have a new war until you finish your old wars. I mean, that's Uncle Sam in a nutshell, I guess. The military-industrial complex in a nutshell. These people who have taken over Syria, who are now lauding as being a success and getting rid of the evil dictator Assad, who, by the way, won every re-election he ever stood in a landslide. And, of course, the lunatics say it was rigged. Our elections are the most secure in the world, but their elections are rigged. The people that have taken over are legit terrorists. Like the head dude has literally been on camera in interviews and admitted to like planting IEDs that killed American servicemen. But woohoo, liberty. And it's being marked as a thing. And he's even reached out. He's gone through some media training or something here, They shaved him up a little bit, took off his warmonger looking, stuff and put him in a half-ass suit, and he's ready to work with Israel. Do you believe that? Do you believe any of this shit? How long? What's the under-over on months? Put it in the live chat for me, and I'll throw some numbers out at the audio-only audience for you if you guys participate. Under-over on months before we have U.S. officials making statements like, the negative consequences that came from our involvement or from this happening were unforeseeable and unfortunate. Something to that effect. Is it 6 months? Is it 9 months? Like, you had to pick a month and be within 1 month either side of it. If you pick 6, if it's 5 or 7, you're right. How long? 9 max. 49 says TX. 2 weeks says Texas Plant Company. 6 weeks and 1 day says Legacy Farm and Homestead. I give it about 4 to 6 months. I think it's going to be somewhere in there that we will have this, and then you'll hear all the people that are pro-Orange Man saying it's not Orange Man's fault. He wasn't even in charge when it happened. And that'll be true, but many of the people that made the decisions to do this will still be in place. That swamp's not going to get drained. Homestead Heathen says 3 to 4 months. That's a pretty good guess. There's going to be something like that. It's not going to be long. And all of these people that are cheering, you never know. Have you noticed this, right? There's all these Syrian refugees, migrants in the United States. They're in the United Kingdom. They're celebrating. They got the flags out. Free Syria. Yay, it's wonderful. Assad is gone. It's great. None of them are going home. None of them are. And I bet you this total number of Syrian refugees who left because of Assad that are now living in Western countries that return to Syria, maybe a couple hundred, maybe. That's being, I was going to say 0, but surely there's someone who maybe had a legitimate reason to leave and maybe now has an opportunity to go back. It doesn't mean that they're good people, right? It doesn't mean they're bad. It just means that there'll be very few. And I just watched Paul Joseph Watson, and unintended. Yeah, don't think that word wasn't said like facetiously when I said it, right? Unintended, yeah, unintended. The purpose of the system is what it does. But Paul Watson just put out a video, and it shows these people celebrating all over the world, and several of them are asked, "So are you going to go back to Syria now?" Oh no. No, the economic outlook's not very good right now. What? Like, you're cheering this on. This is your, people say, I am Syrian. I'm no longer a Syrian refugee. Now I'm just Syrian. But you're not going home. The economic outlook, maybe you should go back. Maybe if you're so great, if you're such a wonderful gift to Western society, you should go back to your own country that's now free and help rebuild it. But you're not gonna, because it's all bullshit. My bigger point here is that the United States has learned nothing. We have learned nothing, because as much as I do believe a lot of what we do is by design, I also believe that an awful lot of your congressmen, your senators, and even your bureaucrats really think we can make things better. And they really do believe without us, the whole thing would just be, a disastrous, war-filled, chaotic hellscape with massive numbers of human rights violations. And guys, I got to go do something. I'll be right back. I'm sorry. I'll be right back. I got a dog that's going to shit in the house if I don't take care of it. You're a bitch. No, you're not going. Get out. Get out. Stay out. I hate being interrupted in live streams. I'm sorry, but the wife and the kids are gone for the day. I just had that dog out before I started. I knew that was going to happen. 20 minutes in, she hit like clockwork. Anyway, she's one of those barks is like, hey, I'm going to do this if you don't let me out. So anyway, I wanted to move on and talk to you guys about the American Diabetes Association. They have this new campaign. And it says, share, what the hell with your menus, guys? Share your story. Let me read it for the non-video people. Here at the ADA, our mission is to prevent and cure diabetes. I'm going to bet that they have never cured a single case of diabetes with their recommendations, just saying. And to improve the lives of all those impacted by it. By sharing your story, you help us raise awareness of diabetes so we can bend the curve on it once and for all. Will you help us awaken the world? Well, I'd love to. And they give you this form you can fill out. And I think you should fill it out. Right? I really do. I think you should fill it out. Specifically, if you were either pre-diabetic type 2 or diabetic type 2, and you use diet to correct your diabetes, especially if you use diet to correct your diabetes and did so without drugs, or by getting on the right diet, you were able to stop using drugs and cure your diabetes. Now, here's what I tell you is going to happen. They're not going to publish a single one of your stories that you do that with. And I'm going to admit to being kind of a dick to them on X in a second, but the story I shared with them, which is when I got banned, that's when I got banned, right? Or blocked by the ADA, was very, very professional. I did say I did the exact opposite of your dietary recommendations. I went on a diet similar to what's recommended by personalities like Ken D. Berry, MD, and Sean Baker, MD. And that I went from being borderline type 2 diabetic to an A1C of 5.3 in 9 months. And over 1 year, I lost 80 pounds. And that if you would tell your people that this is an option, some of them might take it and you might save some lives. If you'd like to know anything else, please let me know. I was then blocked by the ADA within minutes of submitting that. And I was a dick to them for a year, nonstop, pain in the ass on X about this stuff. And sometimes I was not quite as professional. I'll admit that. I never got a response. I never got banned. I'm not saying that maybe I didn't do something that day and that's why I really got blocked, but it's kind of suspicious to me. And I gave them a picture, gave them a phone number, all that stuff. And then all of a sudden I'm blocked. Now here's where I think this is really interesting. The tweet that was on X, and I'll not be able to show it to you because I'm blocked. No, I can show it to you. That's right. They changed that, didn't they? So now you can see them even though you can't. Yeah, Elon did something I think is really cool. Like if somebody blocks you, You can still see them. You just can't comment and they don't see you. So let me show you what precipitated this, okay? And I'll read it again for the video challenged. It is no secret that there is a lot of misinformation about diabetes on the internet, but you cannot refute the lived experience. Your voice matters. Share your story. And that links to that thing I showed you earlier. If you read the comments, and you'll be surprised at how many people tell them that they are scum, professionally and nicely, more than I did, right? The low carb and carnivore lifestyle has reversed my type 2 diabetes. Could be one example. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in 1999. I've never been on any medication to control my blood sugar. I started out on a very low carb diet. I've gradually become a carnivore. My HbA1c is consistently around 5.0. Low carb, keto, carnivore for the win. There's also a lot of people that pointed out that the most disinformation or misinformation about diabetes that's disseminated is probably on their website. I want to tell you guys something I've told you before again, and I've never got any traction with it. Not even interest. And you honestly, my audience, you guys are disappointing me here. That this bell should be rung, and I don't know why it's not. I don't know why everybody's so disinterested in this. There is a cabal between a corporation called DaVita and the American Diabetes Association that is as unholy as a satanic monument at the Vatican. It's that bad. It really is. DaVita makes money one way and only one way. They make money by treating end-stage renal failure. In other words, people whose kidneys are so fucked without dialysis and or a transplant, they are going to die. And they don't make any money on transplants. They make money keeping you alive while you wait for a transplant in many instances that will never come. And DaVita says they are very, very, very concerned about your kidney health. Even though kidney health in this country, if we had widespread kidney health in this country, DaVita would be out of business. This company has 2,700 clinics. They do one thing: dialysis. Dialysis. You go in, you get dialysis, you go home. You have to go a couple times a week so you don't die. That's it. That's their entire business model. They have partnered with the ADA to provide recipes. And on the DaVita website, you can go get American Diabetes Association sanctioned recipes from DaVita to help with your kidney health, including things like sticky, gooey, sweet, sugary, cranberry oatmeal cookies that they recommend you eat for breakfast if you're a diabetic. This is fucking sickening. This is something that every one of you, whatever social media you use, should be pointing out to people. This is something that when I share it, shouldn't get one share. It should get 100 at least. This is something that I do not understand, how people just go, nah. The stuff that people get upset about that is so minor compared to this amazes me. I don't mean to just beat the crap out of you guys or be hard on you or anything like that. Sometimes I do that on purpose. I'm not doing that here. I'm pleading with you. Get a fucking clue about what's happening right in front of you. You have a company that profits off misery and sickness, recommending that diabetics consume food that increases their misery and sickness. And the organization that claims to be the biggest advocacy on behalf of diabetics in the world is promoting it with them. And everybody's like, did you see that this celebrity said this thing that upset me because it insulted Orange Man? Get the fuck out of here. Seriously. This is sick. So I'm asking you to do two things for me today. One, share this fact. In fact, you can wait till tomorrow on that. I will put out a post to help you tomorrow that will point out where the recipes are, the Diabetic Association's logo on the recipe book, and how bad this shit is for diabetics. So you can wait on that one. But what I want you to do is if you have cured your type 2 diabetes, if you have cured your metabolic syndrome, if you were pre-diabetic, and you took the approach that I advocate, Ken Berry advocates, Sean Baker advocates, Thomas DeLore, etc., at all advocate, and it helps save your life, push back, because here's the end. In the end on this. The ADA is a scam organization, but it is run by people who do respond to market incentives. So if there's enough, if they put out this thing and say, we want your stories, and 90% of the stories are from people like us, sooner or later, somebody there just might listen. They might not, but I'll tell you what, when I filled it out, it took me a whopping 2 minutes to fill out that form. They also ask you if you want to do a video. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. So if you want to add a video to it, you can. Let's move on, though. I want to talk to you now about El Salvador and some news about El Salvador. So I woke up this morning, and while I'm drinking my coffee, I jump on X. See, Cougar says my sphere of influence is small. Sorry, Jack. You don't have to have a big influence. Do some. Do some. Do something with the influence. You have no idea what putting something in motion will do. Don't make excuses. I only have like five people that follow me. So what's the point of reposting this or whatever? Because those 5 people are people that you care about, hopefully. That's why. Honestly, the smaller your sphere of influence, the bigger influence you should have per individual. So don't use excuses. But anyway, I woke up this morning and I jump on X while I'm having my morning coffee because it is the best source of news, despite what Axios says. And I'm going through it, and I find this claim that Nayib Bukele, who's the president of El Salvador, is about to completely give up on a Bitcoin standard and make a deal with the IMF to borrow a little, like $1.5 billion. And I'm like, now, wait a minute. El Salvador has well over $1 billion worth of Bitcoin in reserve. $1 billion isn't that much money, even for a country the size of there's got to be more to the story. And I saw somebody mention something about maybe they're borrowing the money to mine gold. So I started tracking this down. Turns out 2 big things have happened here. One, through surveying, they have found a belt of gold deposits in El Salvador, huge belt of gold deposits. Estimated value of the gold reserves in the ground in El Salvador, $3 trillion. Gold's market cap is $17 trillion. I then found a post by Bukele that said, we will dilute the hell out of the world's gold supply. And somebody said, it's just a drop in the ocean. Dude, 3 trillion of 17 trillion is not a drop in the ocean. It's not, I think he said it's a pebble in the lake or something like that. No. This is so what I think is going to happen. Here's my analysis based on all the things I can pull in. One of the things the IMF and the global idiots and the global banking system really doesn't like is that Bukele made Bitcoin legal tender in El Salvador. What that means is that if you sell something in El Salvador, they use the US dollar as their currency and they use Bitcoin as a currency. You must accept payment in either form. If somebody wants to pay in Bitcoin and you say it's $5 US value and they want to give you $5 worth of Bitcoin, you can. Now, the thing that people that make a big deal out of this leave out is that El Salvador has its own, you don't have to use El Salvador's wallet, but they have one if you want it. And it works a lot like Strike. And if you want to receive Bitcoin, but you don't want to hold Bitcoin, you can instantly convert to dollars. So this is actually no harm to any merchant anywhere. And if you say, I take cash only, you don't really get anybody giving you any shit. What they'll probably do, though, is say, yeah, we'll back off the legal tender, but we will not do anything else. And that will probably be enough to get them a loan for $1.5 billion. And the thing about when you borrow money from like that, it's very long-term payment terms. And so it's probably a better play for them than, let's say, seeking private financing, because when you do that, what ends up happening is the people giving you the money tell you how to mine, what to mine, how much to mine, etc. So I think what's going on here is they're going to make a deal of some kind. And no, El Salvador will not have a coup. The people in El Salvador love Bukele, do not believe anything the TV tells you. You can find some people that don't like him, but you'll find a hell of a lot more people in the United States that hate Biden or Trump than you will find that hate Bukele in El Salvador. I'm telling you, the man is overwhelmingly popular. He's not going anywhere. And his troops love him too, by the way. And they don't have a big military force either, okay? So that's not going to happen. I think he's making a deal, and he's going to do sort of a Michael Saylor strategy. I get the money, I mine the gold, I sell the gold, I put some gold in reserve, you convert some of the gold to Bitcoin, and use some of the money and cash from the gold to build out the infrastructure. Now, here's what's interesting to me. I didn't bring it up on screen, and I'm not gonna, because Bukele is speaking Spanish, which ironically some people in the comments are pissed about. He's the president of a country that has Spanish as its language. Of course he's speaking Spanish. He also speaks English. Most of our presidents don't speak other languages, I'm just saying. But he's speaking Spanish. So you have to read the subtitles. So putting it on something where most of the people that get this podcast today will get it in audio form. Like 95% or more will take it in audio form. So I don't want to put on something in Spanish no one's going to understand. But basically, leading up to this, he's moved to remove mining restrictions in El Salvador. Now, when I say restrictions, I don't mean if you mine, you have to, right? Right? Yeah, Mick says the one word he says in that speech is in English is trillions, just to make sure it's clear. I love that. Yes, he did. But when I say restrictions, I don't mean the way we have mining restrictions in the United States. Like you can't drain, sulfur oxide infused water into the groundwater. No, I don't mean that. I mean, do you know that mining is 100% illegal in El Salvador right now? There is no mining in El Salvador. So, of course, as soon as they find the gold and say they're going to go after some of it, all the environmentalists, all the Western nations, oh my God, El Salvador, we can't have the mining. It'll destroy ecosystems. 95% of the groundwater is already contaminated. We got to protect the last 5%. So Bukele's like, what other country of all the countries in the world has a complete prohibition on mining? Do you know what the answer is? Zero. Not a fucking one. They're the only one, but they have to keep theirs. We're allowed to mine. Russia can mine. Spain, England, Australia, New Zealand, China, Costa Rica, Panama, right? Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, all of them can mine, not El Salvador. And his response was, they say that 95% of our groundwater is contaminated, and they want to keep that as the status quo. He said only an idiot would say that it's good to keep it at 5%. What we should be doing is investing in cleaning it up. And when we get to 100% not contaminated, then that becomes the status quo. I think Bukele has probably more common sense than any other world leader as a head of state in the world right now. Number one for common sense. No, and that's why they hate it. They hate it and they hate him. I will tell you that if something happens to him, if he's deposed or whatever, it will not be without U.S. intervention. And I don't think that'll happen under Orange Man. I don't think Orange Man has time to be fucking around with that. Though he may have so much going on that some of our friends in the CIA might do it without approval. That'd be about the only way that would happen. And they probably would get paid by the IMF to do it, you see, because like I said, the problem with the CIA is you could officially disband the CIA tomorrow and almost nothing would change. Sure, the buildings would disappear in the United States, but they're self-funding. They're basically acting at the behest of the highest bidder as long as they can somehow justify that somehow America's interest is being served, right? And so anyway, Tuger says gold dredging operations destroy river systems. Lots of illegal dredging being done in the rainforest. There's also ways to do it that don't cause that. You can, and when you have deposits that large, you can mine way more effectively, at least initially. So and I'm gonna say again, if it was us, we would be mining the shit out of it, and probably nowhere near as environmentally friendly as El Salvador would. But it's gonna be interesting to see what goes on here, because El Salvador could become the most wealthy nation in the world per capita over the next just 5 years, between Bitcoin mining, the Bitcoin bonds, geothermal initiatives to mine Bitcoin, and now these gold deposits. It's only a country of 6 million people. 6 million people, that's a lot of money, but the CIA is the big threat to El Salvador right now. And nothing else really is. I'm just saying, nothing else really is at the time. All right, let's keep going. What do I got for you next? Oh, Elon Musk. Elon Musk has said that the government's computers are dogs. But I've said, you want to bet that the IRS has good ones? So let me read what Elon had to say again for the video impaired folks out there. The federal government computers and software are in such bad shape, they often cannot verify that payments are not fraud, waste, or abuse. That's why the government can't pass basic audits. They often literally don't know where your tax dollars went. It's insane. My preferred title in the new administration is volunteer IT consultant. Need to fix the IT infrastructure in order to make the government work. This is a grind. It's hardly glorious, but we can't make government efficient and fix the deficit if the computers don't work. But here's what I'm going to say. That's all the computer systems that spend your money. They don't work worth a shit. I believe Musk. I don't trust Musk. But when I look at one of his statements, I look at it like anybody else's statement and say, do I believe this? Do I think this is accurate? Or is it not accurate? Right? Which one? How do I feel about this one? This one I think is completely accurate. I'm going to tell you that back when I worked with Neil Franklin, who I was working with when we started this, one of the companies that we managed was a contract placement company where we took very high-end engineers that worked on legacy systems. And you'd call up and say, I need 2 technicians that can work on these type of systems in the Philippines. And within 48 to 72 hours, we could put 2 people in the Philippines. Our biggest customer, though, honestly, the United States and United Kingdom governments. They have so much legacy crap, it's insane. There's still government computers operating today that use floppy disks, and I don't mean the ones you remember if you went to school in the 80s that were made out of plastic and were actually hard, or if you, like, even before that, if you were like a Commodore kid like me in the early, mid-80s, the little ones that were they actually were floppy. No, I mean those big fuckers, like the ones that you have to use 2 hands to shove into the drive. There's still computers using that. But I bet you that the people that investigate you, like the IRS, have state-of-the-art shit. I just bet people like the FBI that label Americans who object to what their government does, domestic terrorists, have state-of-the-art shit. It's the people that actually audit what the government's doing with the money or do the outbound payments. They have the garbage. Yeah, Tom, you're right. 8-inch. I couldn't remember how big they were. 8-inch floppies. No, they still have that shit, and they have way worse. They're still doing token ring on some of the networks, if you even know what that is. I mean, thick net token ring. We're supposed to be the most advanced country in the world. Here's a total. I didn't even plan on covering this today. And I have to look more into it to cover it deeply. But just as an aside, my wife and I went and saw the greatest country music band of all time play this Saturday night. And they ain't what they used to be. And there's only 2 of the original band members left. And of course, if you're not stupid, you know who I'm talking about. Alabama. Randy Owen, who was one of the greatest baritones in a country music group of all time, which made like all their ballads and love songs just so damn amazing, is now 73 years old, and he's singing an octave higher to compensate for his age, which we can all understand. And I loved Alabama. That's why we went. And I loved Randy and his music. And it's kind of sad to see somebody really at the end of their career. But I'll be honest, this needs to be the farewell tour of farewell tours. They need to hang it up. They need to be done. He did good, but you could tell it was that point where you do this another year and you're not, right? You're going to be like the last Buffett concert I went to where I'm like, man, I love Jimmy more than most people ever could, but you should have hung it up last year. That's where he's at the year before the last year when you really shouldn't do it anymore. But it got me wondering, like, what's his health been like? So I look up Randy's past and I find out that he had prostate cancer. Okay. About 1999, Alabama kind of just quit. They just let it go. They're making much money off royalties and all. And they went about a decade without appearing until they were kind of like, and when Randy found out people even wanted to hear him, he couldn't believe it. And this is, 15 years ago, 14 years ago, something like that. But in that interim, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. His first question to his doctor was, how long do I have? And his doctor's response was, if you say anything like that again, I'm going to fire you as a patient. Right. And he said, because my job is to keep you alive, not to nurse you while you die. And there's a treatment, I can't remember what it's called now, that has been used all over the world very, very effectively. And Randy went to Mexico to get it because it's not legal in the United States. Now, I didn't look up if in the last 14 years it's been approved. Probably hadn't. But he's been cancer-free since receiving that treatment, and you can't get it in America. But we're the most modern nation in the world, right? And I understand when somebody who's broke goes to Mexico for medical treatment and pays out of pocket because they can't get treated in America because they're broke. Randy fucking Owen can write a check for anything he wants on the planet. Randy Owen could afford to go to any, Cedars-Sinai, Johns Hopkins, any place he wants to go, and they'll open the door and give him a world-class suite when he walks in. He went to Mexico for treatment and it saved his life. So stop telling me about how great America is. Teddy Gentry, Jake says, is the inventor of the South Pole cattle breed. Teddy is one of Randy's cousins. He's the other member of the band that's still there. The drummer quit in, I think, 99. He almost has a fifth Beatles story, right? Mark, I can't remember his last name. He wanted to play rock and roll, and they offered him the position in the late 70s, and he almost turned it down. And now he owns like 2 huge rock clubs. He works with people who are like up and coming, like as a mentor and stuff like that. And he is rolling bank because he said yes. And he played with the band over 20 years. And by the way, Alabama, 50 years anniversary was 2019. That's some staying power in this world. Teddy is the bass player. Mark was the drummer. And I can't think of the fourth original band member's name, but he was their lead guitarist, and he passed away a few years ago of also prostate cancer. So maybe it was too late to go to Mexico. Maybe he didn't go. I don't know. All right. But yeah, I think that the big takeaway I have from Elon's tweets here is that it's probably the case. It's most likely the case anyway, that I'm just pulling something else up real quick here for you guys that's not related to what we've been talking about, because I didn't. Sorry, guys. It's a Monday. Doing my best. Anyway, I bet you that the organizations in your government that are tasked with getting money from you and investigating you, et cetera, all have really great computers, really great hardware, really great networks. And it's only the ones that are concerned with spending the money that have the shit. That's what I'm just going to say. Real quick, I wanted to tell you about this website. One of the folks from the audience that was at the workshop, and I don't remember your name, I'm sorry, sir, or otherwise I would cite you as the source, told me about this site called PodSnacks. And it's pretty cool. You drop in different podcasts that you want to listen to, and you can then go in and see individual episodes of your podcasts. And when you click on show description, instead of just episodes, instead of just getting the notes, you get a summary. So this is the one that the rewind that I did on Friday, Courtney Clay on unschooling, understanding unschooling. And then there's like for each one I'm going to read, there's like a paragraph of summary, understanding unschooling, learning fundamental skills, socialization, real world flaws of the modern education system, creating supportive communities, developing resourcefulness, and rethinking education and societal norms. Then the chapters are individually broken down. And then if you want, you can get a full transcript. I'm still playing with this as a podcaster and learning how to use it from a standpoint of I should be able to take this text and use it to make my episodes more attractive to like web search and stuff like that. But as a consumer, I would tell you that if you follow a lot of podcasts, this is a good way to figure out which ones you want to listen to and at least stay in touch with your various podcast hosts who maybe you don't listen to all their episodes, and maybe help you filter more of what you really want to hear. Because I think sometimes you look at a title and think, I don't know about this. And I think you can follow up to 10 podcasts on it before you have to give them any money. And then if you go over 10 that you monitor, you have to pay them and what have you. And the only flaw I found with it is there are some podcasts that I've been listening to that are relatively new. And if they're not in their index, you can't add it. So I don't know if they're scraping iTunes like once a month or something like that. But I found this one new podcast I'll tell you about in a bit. They've only got 2 episodes out, and they're like last week and the week before. So they are brand new. They're on iTunes. They're in Fountain, but they're not there yet. So we'll see if they fix that. They really need to have like whatever service they're pulling from, you should be able to search that service and give them the feed or something like that. But otherwise, it's a really cool service. And like I said, the guy that told me about it, when he said PodSnacks, my immediate reaction was involuntarily, and my eyes rolled because I thought it was going to be some sort of food that you stick away for the apocalypse or something in your pod. But no, it's a really cool service, and it's definitely worth checking out. Next up, Trump has stated publicly that he is open to leaving NATO. Now, I know there are people out there, my special kids, will say, well, this link that you have in the notes and this video of these guys talking is from RT, and they're Russian propaganda. Let me read it before you say that. Donald Trump confirms he will consider withdrawing the U.S. from NATO, according to NBC's Meet the Press, where Trump just gave a really long interview, and I watched it, and he did say that. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think about this. I do not think he'll do it. And I think there's one thing that the media makes sure that you don't understand about Trump, because I hate him. Trump says shit all the time that he doesn't want to do, but he says he'll do it as though he wants to do it. And that's because Trump is a deal maker. Now, this is not me promoting Trump. This is an analysis. And if you can't understand that, I can't help you anymore. Some of my special, fully autistic libertarian friends like Jason at the Free Thought Project can't handle being told things that aren't 100% negative about somebody they hate. They block me too on X. That's fine. You can do that. It's okay. If you can't hear the things you don't want to hear, anybody's free to stop listening to me. Okay, so what I mean by this is that when Trump wants to get something done, anything that he has the power to make happen that would be of negative consequence to the people he's negotiating with, he will put on the table that he's at least willing to consider that, if not outright do it. Now, when you're making a negotiation and you do something like that, you're not saying it's your preferred outcome. You're not saying it's what you want to do. You're saying, if you don't, then I will. Let's try a way that maybe we'll get through some of the thick bone skulls out there that will maybe make sense to you. Somebody breaks into your house. You point your gun at them and you say, get the fuck on your face or I will blow your head off. Assuming that you are not looking forward to taking somebody's life, assuming that person doesn't have a visible weapon in their hands, assuming you have the drop on, you've got them dead to rights, and if they do anything other than what you say, bam, and it's over. They're dead, right? No one and no thing is under any immediate risk if they comply with what you've said. Get on the fucking ground or I will blow your fucking brains out, okay? Or however you choose to say it. The reason you don't say, would you please get down so I don't have to shoot you, is because you want them to fucking believe that if they do other than what you say, the last sound they will hear is not boom, because when go, you die before you hear the bang, even that close, right? If it's in the head, that will be the last sound they hear. You want them to believe it so that, why? You don't have to pull the fucking trigger. See how that works? See how that works? Get on the fucking ground or I'll blow your head off. He wants to kill me. No, he doesn't want to kill you. He wants you to comply so he doesn't have to kill you. You understand this now? Okay, that's tariffs. That's all pull out of NATO. That's like 90% of the shit that Trump says that they make out to be negative. It's Jake here who... Jake is such an Orange Man fan now, but I remember when Orange Man ran the first time and he was running around getting photobombing pictures with Ted Cruz and saying he smells like the Constitution. He was a never Trumper. Just for full disclosure there, Jake, right? Remember that? He smells like the Constitution, right? So Trump is doing this. The tariffs, the NATO pullout. What does he want out of NATO? I'm going to tell you why. What I would do is pull the fuck out. So I'm not advocating for his choice here. He wants Germany and France and Spain and all these countries that have, and his point is valid. They are all very wealthy countries to actually fulfill their obligations under the treaty. Okay, NATO is a treaty. It's a treaty of alliance. It has things that all sides that are party to the treaty agree to. We call that a contract, libertarians, a contract. A contract. So let's say we have a contract and I have a big ass house with 10 bedrooms. I take one and 9 of you people decide you want to live in my house. And we all sign a contract, and that contract says everybody with a room will pay Jack a base rate of $300 a month plus, 10% of the electric bill and 10% of the property taxes and 10% of the garbage disposal fee. Right? I don't know. It doesn't matter. The numbers are arbitrary, irrelevant. Just understand that's the contract that you guys make. And then it turns out after a year of living like this, I audit it, and the only person paying their fair share is me. The rest of you 9 motherfuckers are not paying your full price, and I have been covering the difference at the expense of my own family. And I say, pay your bills or get the fuck out of my house, and you say you can't do this to us. That's NATO. That's NATO. So my solution is, we'll get to it. Trump's solution is all of you assholes start paying your required part of the treaty, which is based on a percentage of their GDP. And it's 2% of their GDP. And it's not even it goes to NATO. It is required that France, Germany, et al. Are supposed to be investing at minimum 2% of their GDP to their national defense. That's it. None of them fulfill that obligation consistently. 0. Some are worse than others. Sometimes make it. Sometimes others don't. But they're not fulfilling their obligation. See, this is an alliance. This is not, Israel's our ally. Ukraine's our ally. No, they're not our fucking allies. If you have an alliance with somebody, you have a signed agreement that specifies the obligations that both sides have toward each other. That's an alliance. Not everybody that you get along with is an ally. I'm pretty good friends with one of my neighbors. I'm not his ally. I don't have a mutual agreement of defense with him. I probably would defend his home, but if he goes out and starts a fight, I'm not jumping in to help him, right? I don't have that alliance. I don't have a formalized agreement. I have no obligations to him. He has no obligations to me. Maybe we'll support each other. Maybe we won't. But what we have in the United States is this idea that we're supposed to be everybody's ally that doesn't hate us. And that means we are supposed to go and defend their borders, spend money on them, do everything we can to support them, and they have no obligation back to us. That's NATO. So what Trump wants to do is correct the imbalance. Correcting the imbalance is, listen, assholes, let me explain to you how this works. The United States has been carrying the brunt of the economic and troop load since World War II. We agreed to do that originally under the Marshall Plan. We also agreed long-term that this would change form and that you have these obligations you have not met. We're paying all the bills, and there's a mortgage due on the house in this analogy. And instead of kicking you out, we're just packing our shit and leaving if you don't start paying for the upkeep and maintenance of this house. It's a completely reasonable thing if you want to keep NATO in place for the United States to do. Why wouldn't we do that? Who can object to this in any logical or economic sense? Why shouldn't Germany be held to their agreement? Why shouldn't France be held to their agreement? Why shouldn't Italy be? Why should only the United States be held to its agreement and have to make up the shortfall for all these other countries? So that's Trump's position. Again, I think if you want to keep NATO in place, it is a completely reasonable position. Me, asshole that I am, jerk that I am, I don't want to keep NATO in place. NATO was founded when we created the aura of a Cold War to justify its existence. We then took fucking Nazis and made them heads of NATO. Legitimate fucking Nazis, okay? There were more Nazis that ran NATO in a 20-year period over from the 60s, 70s, and into the 80s than any other group of people that were called upon to lead NATO. They were all former fucking Nazi officers. You doubt me? Go fucking look it up. Go look it up. And so but at least you could say, hey, we're like all point nuclear missiles at each other. There's this, Iron Curtain. Half of Europe is under control by the Soviets. Like that was the justification. The whole friggin' Soviet Union fell apart. I don't know if you're aware of this. It was 1989, I believe it was, right? There is no more Iron Curtain. All these former Soviet republics are independent republics now. Most of them are way more friendly to us than Russia. All of the countries that were occupied, like Poland, East Germany, they're all westernized democracies now. Let me just put it this way. If there wasn't NATO today, would you be supporting making a massive investment of U.S. military, U.S. manpower, and U.S. money to create it if it didn't exist already? And most of you would say no. Right? Most of you would say no. No, I would not do it. So this is the same thing I say when people talk about, like, if you have a stock that you wouldn't buy today, you should probably sell it. Because if you wouldn't put $100,000 in it, you're holding $100,000 worth of it. It's the same thing. So I would just get rid of it. But that's me. That's me. But Trump's position as president of the United States, not the president of fucking the EU, is a completely reasonable position, no matter how many other things I disagree with him about, and no matter how much I want NATO disbanded. Like, that would be my first choice. No more NATO. My second choice would be NATO, if you can make it happen, stand alone without the United States, But if we can't do that, then you at least pay your damn fair share. Because I think NATO has caused more problems than it's solved, especially for the last 20 years. And I defy you to prove otherwise. What has it prevented? Well, Russia would do all the shit you say Russia would do in the places that they did it. They just did it anyway. Crimea, what have you. Like, well, they would have taken everything. You can't. There's nothing to base that on other than NBC and CBS talking points. I'm sorry. I like what Tudor's saying here. No way. Europe has nothing to offer us other than physical space they occupy, which is battlefields. I agree. Europe is not doing anything for us right now. Europe is a sandbag holding down our balloon is what Europe is right now. We don't need Europe. And I'm not saying Europe should go away. And I'm not saying they should, take it over by Putin or some other stupid shit somebody said. What I'm saying is Europe should see to European needs. And more so, Spain should see to Spain's needs. And probably the EU itself probably is something that should go. But that's Europe's business. That's Europe's business, not ours. All I'm suggesting is we be non-interventionist, which is not the same as isolationist. Think about how fucked up the brain of the average idiot is today. That you can get somebody on the news, I don't care what channel it is, Fox, NBC, CBS, whatever, ABC, local, national, whatever, and they'll say something like, but the United States cannot afford to be isolationist in 2024. Okay, like we couldn't do it in 94, we couldn't do it in 74, we couldn't do it in 60. When could we? We're this magical unicorn that can fix everything, even though literally everything we touch ends up more fucked up than it started. The United States hasn't actually made anything better since post-World War II. What we did with the Marshall Plan, we actually made Europe better. We made Japan better, right? Now, we fucked it up first, and we have everything to do with how fucked up Europe became because we intervened in World War I that directly caused World War II. Because if we had not intervened in World War I, France, England, etc., probably still would have won the war. Because here's the secret. The war was pretty much almost over by the time the United States entered it. We're like people that walked into the middle of a bar fight. The other guys have slugged it out, and the side we pick is winning, so we just walk over and knock over the last few fucking people. And then say, woohoo, we won. Okay? So we caused the chain of events of the World War, but we did do good with the Marshall Plan. What we said was the United States has so much. The rest of the world has been so damaged. We should pick them back up. But we never, once we got them up, said, okay, there you go. We did it. Bye-bye. And came back to looking after ourselves. That's really when the United States stopped looking out for itself. But these idiots will say, we can't afford to be isolationists. Isolationism and non-intervention do not mean the same thing. I challenge you, unless they've changed the dictionary, which they do frequently anymore, but I challenge you to look it up. Look up the definition of non-intervention and look up the definition of isolationism. They're not the same thing. Isolationism is we live here in America, fuck the world, we don't import, we don't export, we don't trade, we don't engage. We're Indo-Japan. Indo-Japan was isolationist. It was a closed society. You couldn't go there. They would kill you if you showed up. That's isolationism. There's an island somewhere in the Pacific right now that nobody goes to except the people that live there. They're primitive as fuck. And if you try to go there, they will kill you. That's isolationism. Non-intervention means not fucking around with other people's shit. It doesn't mean not trading with them, not engaging in diplomacy, not being active in the world as a nation across the globe. It doesn't mean not having deals. Like, it is what, very simply, one of our founders, Jefferson, said. You know what Jefferson said? Commerce with all, alliances with none. His view was there's no need for an alliance. That alliances should be short duration and situational. In other words, there could be a situation where we're like, oh, fuck, I don't know, the North Pole penguins are invading Canada and they're about to fall, and we need to defend our northern neighbor. Like, and so that we would join in the fight to save Canada from the nuclear penguins or whatever. Okay. And so that whenever something went down like that, if we actually had really great relations with the country and that country being invaded would really be bad for us, that we could make that decision and we would go to Congress and say, Congress, hey, look, the nuclear penguins are going to take over Canada. And if we don't do something, they could invade us next because they'll have all of Canada's armament and they'll come get us. And then the Congress would vote on it and it would authorize our joining this conflict. When's the last time Congress actually declared war? No, the answer is World War II. And everything's been a dog shit show since then. I'm just saying. Let me move on because I don't want to just beat up on any one of these things. So let's talk about something different. Yes. Now Jack's going to tell you about Bitcoin again. I know some of you don't want to hear it, but open your ears. You might learn something here. What I have in front of me is a map, as a graph. And again, for the visually challenged, I will explain the graph as best I can for you. But it is Bitcoin's price denominated in US dollars since inception. And when you tell somebody that I've done really good with Bitcoin, or I've been in Bitcoin since 2015, 2016, 2014, you get the same response always. You got in early and I missed the opportunity and it's too late now. And so about 2013 is when I started actually telling you guys about Bitcoin. It was right here. And you guys said, what? It's too late. I missed the opportunity. I should have gotten involved early and I didn't. And it's too late now. Okay. And Bitcoin was priced at about $100. It's now about $100,000. Just saying. And there's been some in that duration. If you look, there's been some strikingly sharp upticks during bull markets. But if you were to go from about March of 2013 to present day, you would draw a line that is damn near linear, and it's up. It's almost exactly what's the word I'm looking for here? It's very constant. It's a constant rise up. And if you had entered and began DCAing any time from this point forward, your returns would be identical to anybody else who had done it for, let's say, 3 years. 3 years time, any time in between these two times, you'd end up in about the same place. In other words, the benefit of being in early, if we're going to use, let's say, mid-2013 as our entry point, was only that you were in longer. It wasn't an ROI on an annualized basis across time. In other words, your opportunity in 2021 was just as good as your opportunity in 2015. It really was. Again, if you take and you just were to, I don't have any tools to do it with, but if you just laid out a line here, it's pretty much a constant ROI of about 60% annualized per year, right? Is about 60% as your return. Now, some years are down and some years are up, but the annualized rate of return across time is about 62.8% to be exact. And again, about any 3-year period in there. And I guess you could go in and take the last bull market's high and go to, oh, you'd still have almost, even if you cherry pick to the negative, you're still almost going to prove my point. Do you understand that? So all of you that are saying the same tired shit, I missed the opportunity, it's too late, I wish I would have got in early if I would have known. My answer to if I would have known is no, you wouldn't, because you did and you were told, but you chose not to believe it. You did know. You did know. And it was a safer investment in 2018 than it was in 2014. And it's a safer investment in 2024 than it was in 2018. So you do what you want. When you do what you want, and when there's no doubt. See, anybody that says this, oops, I'm sorry, I'm going to beat up on you a little bit right now as a demonstration to the other children. When there is no dollar, what do you get for your bit? Silver, gold, or whatever. There will be a dollar. It will be rebased after it's debased. It will change in form. But this shit about when there's no dollar, then you better not have Bitcoin, because what are you going to get for it? Do you know how dumb that is? If the currency that I am relying on fails, I don't want this other currency. Do what you want. Do what you want. Do what you want. Do what you want. Okay? Do what you want. But don't tell me 5 years from now, I wish I would have known. It's too late. I missed the opportunity. I can't believe Bitcoin is at $900,000. And don't think it won't be. 5-6 years from now, we'll be talking about $1 million Bitcoin the way we're talking about $100,000 Bitcoin today. It may be quicker. I don't really know. My belief is, and I'll save, because there's a question on it, I'll save it for later. I don't believe that we have broken the cycle yet. I believe that we're not done we're not at the top by a long shot in this cycle, in my opinion. But there's a lot of scud floating around right now that, well, you know, we broke that cycle. Now we have the ETFs, countries are adopting it, blah, 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 institutional money, blah, blah, blah. It won't go as high, but we'll stop having the big corrections. I see us hitting somewhere over 200,000 in this cycle. And I could be wrong. I don't really have enough data yet to know if that's going to happen. But if we do, and we're still in kind of the part of the cycle where you'd expect that kind of a rise, I expect a correction probably down to about where we're at right now. Well, I'm going to wait. Well, go ahead. But this is the problem. Everybody thinks they're going to outsmart it. And you always miss the big runs when you try that. You could DCA every day for $5. So many people go to Starbucks every fucking day, if not at least every fucking work day. And I know right now, if you're going to Starbucks on a daily basis, you're dropping more than $5 a day at Starbucks. I don't even know what you can get for $5 at Starbucks anymore. I really don't. So you could be with like the Strike app. You could just be buying $5 a day, make your own fucking coffee in a French press and buy $5 a day. Or keep making excuses. But this is reality, okay? This is reality. You can make money or you can make excuses. And I've said it again, and I've lectured you on it again, and I'm going to let you do anything you want. You don't have to justify it for me. But if you tell me something stupid like you're trusting your money to a light switch, or what's going to happen when they turn off the internet, I have 4 letters for you. HFSP, and I'm done. We're going to move on. All right. So now let's talk about some really cool news. This is fucking awesome. So there is a company that is doing work with biochar, and they have developed a sustainable method for enhancing self-healing biomortars by using coconut shell biochar as a carrier for bacterial spores. Now, here's the basics of how this works. They take the biochar and they inoculate it with a inert bacteria. This is a bacteria like in stasis. This bacteria, when it's dry, it goes into stasis, and when it gets wet, it wakes up and starts reproducing. This bacteria, there's actually 2 strains of bacteria. And before you, oh my God, they're going to kill us all. Okay, this is bacteria that's all over the place right now. Like if you wipe your hand across a desktop, there's probably a spore or 2 of this bacteria on your hands. This is very, very common bacteria. But when it's active, it actually produces calcium something. I don't remember exactly. I don't know if I can find it here. But it actually produces a calcium byproduct, a calcium carbonate formation, okay? Calcium carbonate, that's basically what cement is. If you dig up my property and pull the rocks out, it's a calcium carbonate conglomerate rock that looks like fucking concrete, because this area I'm sitting in Central Texas used to be under what was known as the Great Inland Sea about 60 million years ago. And so it's shells and calcium and sand formed a conglomerate, concrete. Very, very hard shit. And this bacteria, while it's reproducing, produces calcium carbonate as a byproduct. So they distribute the biochar basically evenly as part of the makeup of the concrete. Here's a cool thing about that. Before we even get to the self-healing, this lightens the concrete and makes it stronger. Biochar and concrete is old tech. It's getting used more and more because it actually makes the cement mix stronger. Okay. But all concrete can and does crack. So when it forms a crack, and it's small cracks, it's like 0.88 millimeters, if I remember right from reading this earlier today. That's about the thickness of a credit card. But when concrete cracks, it always starts as like hairline cracks. And then those cracks over time, as ground settles, as water gets in, as you get a freeze and thaw cycle, it expands, and then the concrete really degrades over time. If you had somebody go out and fix all the hairline cracks immediately, if you could get inside deep enough and do it, after a certain amount of time, the concrete becomes very stable. Most cracking, and anybody that's done concrete work knows, most of the cracking problems you're going to get, unless you have major foundation issues, most concrete work, the cracks show up relatively quickly, okay? And then they worsen. So in less than 2 months, from the formation of a crack up to about as thick as a credit card in your wallet, these bacteria completely fuse the crack back shut. But you can't do it without biochar. You can't just stick the bacteria in the concrete because it'll die. It needs a place to hang out. It needs those little pores, those little holes, those little condominiums to sit in and wait to be woken up. Now, what's not clear is how long it can be woken up for. And I'm sure more work needs to be done on this, but I wanted to tell you about this website anyway. It's called Biochar Today. They put out all the news every week on biochar, and they actually have a podcast called This Week in Biochar, and cool, their new episode is available, A White Biochar for the Right Job. I've been listening to these. These are pretty cool. They're not long. They're 15, 20 minutes, somewhere in that range of duration. The hosts, I don't hate them. They're not my style of presentation. Everything sounds very scripted. And it's a guy and a chick, and the chick is very big on words like you see. So they take the biochar, and that's made out of carbonous material. You see, she's just weird idioms and stuff. I honestly think the way the whole thing comes across, they may not even be real people. They may be very good AI voices. I don't know that. I haven't dug into it and researched it to find out who they're supposed to be or anything, but it sounds very scripted. And it's everything on it is about an article on their site. That said, what I like about it is that I get all those pieces and I can dig deeper into the ones that I like. So I do it when I'm out. I'll listen to it when I'm out taking care of the ducks or cutting material for biochar or who knows what. Okay. I also want to encourage some of you guys that have been doing biochar, do this for yourself. Get on Google Maps and look for cabinet makers or wood shops on Google Maps in your area. I found 2 close to me. I sent them both an email. One has already agreed to save all their cutoffs and scrap for me. They put them in the big 50-gallon poly barrels. I'm going to bring him 2 or 3 empty ones, and I'll take his full ones. And then every time he's ready for me to pick up another load, he'll tell me. I'll bring him empty ones back and pick them up. So you're looking at all seasoned wood that's perfectly ready to go into biochar. And that's pretty damn cool. And I was like, I wonder, because I don't want to drive into Dallas or some shit for this. There's a dude, he's the one that didn't answer me. I might drive down and do a cold call knock on his shop door. There's a dude, he's a mile away from me as a cabinet maker. And they have to get rid of this material. The other guy, he's about 3 miles north of me. And he said flat out, I got to pay to get rid of this. Of course I'll give it to you. Now there's going to be some ply mixed in with it I got to get rid of, but whatever. I mean, just suggesting you might want to check that out. Next up today, what I want to do is I want to talk to you about the shooting in New York City. Okay. And I want to ask you a simple question. Do you think if you or someone you loved had been executed like that in New York City on camera, just like it happened to Brian, whatever his name is, from United Healthcare, and shot right in the back of the head by a dude in a mask, and he ran away and got away, at least initially, do you think there would have been a national FBI-led manhunt to find them? Do you think they would have been on 3 or 4 times an hour every hour since it happened on the news, showing the picture, saying, hey, we need help finding this guy? Do you think that they would give a shit that you or someone you loved was shot? Now, if you were, I don't know, let's say you were a really pretty blonde girl, maybe, right? Or someone that they could make a big sappy story about, but the average person they wouldn't care about. And I've seen 2 different ways that people are responding to this, and I find them both to be idiotic. One side is like, this is never acceptable, and all they care about is that there's lunatics on the left cheering it on. I'll get to them in a second. They don't really care about this guy. They pretend that they care, right? And I'm going to say this. The man that did this, looks like a kid, but probably an adult, who did this, should be tried for murder in the first degree and sentenced to whatever sentence is applicable to the crime. And if he spends the rest of his life in prison, I will not lose a second of sleep over it. Okay? Just to make sure you understand me. Okay? But here's the next thing I'm going to say. I have not lost a second of sleep over the CEO of United Healthcare being dead. And I'm going to tell you something I know about most people in this audience. I'm going to say 99.9%. Neither did you, and you're not going to, and don't pretend that you are. Okay? Now let's talk about the other side. There are people that are championing it and saying that we should kill all the health, insurance CEOs or whatever. They're a product of the environment that they're in. They run their business the way the law says they're supposed to run their business. That's it. Now, the other side of this is, you know who has the highest rejection rate of requested treatments of all insurers in the United States? United Healthcare. And you know what that percentage is? If you submit a request, your doctor says that you need this treatment to United Healthcare, there's a 32% chance that when you submit the request, they'll say no. The industry average is 16, and they're the largest insurer in the country. Kaiser Permanente, I checked, has the lowest rejection rate, by the way, the highest rates, 7. So of 100 people that their doctors say they need a treatment or whatever from Kaiser Permanente, 7 are told no. For 100 people with United Healthcare, 32% are told no. 32 out of 100 are told no, you cannot have that treatment. We will not approve it. And what amazes me is how they're like, we're really not sure of the motive yet. The fucking dude's bullets had words written on them that were literally the title of a book about how health insurance companies don't do what they're supposed to do. They caught him, and he had a manifesto on him about this whole thing, but we're not sure what happened. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go out and guess here. But I'm pretty sure that this guy is not just someone who said somebody needs to do something about this, so it's going to be me, and decided with no direct connection to United Healthcare whatsoever, he's the biggest, they're the highest, so I'm going to go shoot him. I'm just going to bet when we dig into this guy's backstory, his mom, his aunt, his sister, his daughter, somebody that he loved was denied treatment and probably ended up dead as a result of it. Now, again, I'm not justifying the action, but I'm going to tell you this. If you don't say, maybe we should figure out why this happened for real, maybe we should look at it, and maybe we should ask this question. Why, even when the few people that say they do, why does literally no one give two fucks that this guy's dead? Then you don't want to fix the problem. You want to deny there is a problem, or you want to score points for your team. And I'll tell you why I don't care. It's a little bit different. I don't care because people die every day. And I don't know what makes this man so special. Because somebody shot him. People get shot every day. Do you know their names? Do you know the name of the last person that was shot in the state that you live in? Do you know the name of the last person that was shot in the county that you live in, especially that wasn't a criminal and was a legitimate victim? Do you know their name? You don't, do you? I don't even remember their names, but a few weeks ago, a family of 4 was traveling 820 westbound about 5 miles from my house, maybe 10 miles from my house. Some idiot got on that highway, which is dangerous as it is, going the exact wrong direction. The 2 vehicles hit at an estimated speed of about 70 miles each in the dark. Head-on collision. It's equivalent to a 140-mile-an-hour collision into a wall. Everybody's dead. Everybody's dead. They were so disfigured and burned, and the car was so destroyed that it took them weeks to even figure out their names and who they were. They were not local. They were not from the area they were traveling through. I'm going to say a man, a wife, and his 2 children I care more about their death than the death of the United Healthcare CEO. I do. They're closer to home. They did nothing to anybody that we know of. They were minding their own business. They were traveling on vacation. And an idiot's choice to be an idiot cost them their lives. I care more about that than I care about him. And don't pretend you care. Don't pretend you care. I don't see anybody lighting candles or anything like that. I'm sure the family cares, and I'm sure people that knew him cared. And the guy's probably, as a person, probably a decent guy. Now, I'm going to have just as many people mad at me for saying he's decent as for saying I don't care. But I'm not going to pretend I care when I don't care. What I care about is that certain people in this country are looked at differently than other people in this country. And it really doesn't have anything to do with race or religion. It has to do mostly with money. And it's either that they had money or that the media feels they can make money off of the tragedy. That's the world you live in. You're told which people who die to care about and which people to ignore. And you're told to ignore them by the very absence of their stories being told. Because this is what happens. Somebody gets killed in your local community. Happens all the time. Car wreck, shooting, whatever. One person was killed, another person injured. They were both taken to Parkland Hospital. One is in stable condition. The other passed away. It was, declared DOA or whatever. Their names were Bill and Tom. That's it. Same station. We're on the 9th day of a nationwide manhunt. If you have seen this, it's the same shit. Over and over and over and over again. And it's important that you don't get sucked into this crap and believe that somehow this man's life was more valuable than those 4 people that died on the road 10 miles south of me. I care more about the lives lost in the church down the road from that location a couple years ago, where that old man capped the son of a bitch that came in and shot people, but he killed several people first. I care more about those lives than I do this guy. Why? My backyard. Do I think about them frequently? No. I'll tell you somebody who I do think about frequently. A couple years ago, right around this time, close to Christmas, there was a little girl in Lake Worth, which is literally 5 miles south of me, that was run over by a UPS driver. She was hurt, but she was alive. Tell me if you've heard this story. If you're not from my area, I guarantee if you do not live in Dallas-Fort Worth, you've probably never heard this. She got hit. The guy ran her over with a UPS truck. He's a contractor for UPS. He gets out of the truck and he goes to see what he did. And she says, I'm going to tell my daddy that you did this to me. Now, anybody with a remote compassion or a heart would have said, oh my God, don't worry about what the kid said. 911, I ran a child over by accident. Please come. He killed her. He strangled her to death. And then he ran, and then they captured him. I actually do think about that little girl probably once a month. And around Christmas time, I think about her a lot. I couldn't tell you her name, but it means a hell of a lot more to me than this guy because she was a little girl. But Fox News didn't tell you about that, did they? So fuck Fox News, fuck MSNBC, fuck CNN, fuck Axios, fuck all these people. Fuck these people. They don't give a fuck about you, and they don't care about him or his family either. They know when they have a hot story that will get you to look at it, and they can use it to sell more drug commercials. Please understand that about the media. No matter how much you despise the media, you don't hate them enough. Which was really interesting. I don't have it for you today, but to see the head of Axios. So yeah, if you haven't heard, they do have this guy in custody, apparently. Brian Thompson was the guy's name. Again, I wish the guy no ill will, but you're told who to have compassion for and who not to have compassion for. Next up, a guy that we should have a lot of compassion for based on what's happened to him, and his problems are not over yet, is a gentleman named Daniel Penny. He's a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. You probably have heard about this. A dude named Jordan Neely was on the subway threatening to kill people and saying he didn't care if he got out of there alive and threatening to hurt people. And Daniel Penny said, enough of this shit, put him in a chokehold and submitted him out till he passed out. And every time the guy woke up and started talking like he's going to hurt people again, he choked him out again. Dude died. Now, there you go. Tom's got it right. That girl I told us wasn't a UPS driver, it was a FedEx driver. Athena Strand, 7 years old, was murdered by a guy who could have saved her life after he ran her over. Yeah, I care about her more. Anyway, Penny, this guy dies, right? All the people on the subway said, this guy's a hero. Like every single eyewitness said this guy was a hero. We were all afraid for our lives. He doesn't run. He stays there with the police. He has no idea the guy's passed away while the cops are interviewing him because cops lie and they don't tell you things. And they make a case against this dude. They put him on trial in New York City. Honestly, what I've seen come out of New York City, I'm never going to New York City again. And that's a shame because I actually enjoyed my time. I spent a lot of time over about 3 years in New York City when it was part of my territory. And you can have a lot of fun. I'm not going because you get wrapped up in something like this. If this would have happened in just about any other state in the country, except maybe California, Oregon, Washington, or Illinois, maybe Massachusetts, this dude would have been given a medal. I'm telling you right now, if Daniel Penny did this somewhere in Texas, he probably would have already been in to see and presented with a medal by the governor. Florida, I know that would have happened, right? He would have had an official thank you for what he did. And he did not try to kill this guy. Of course, Alvin Bragg, where we've heard that name before, decides they're going to prosecute this dude. And they do. And they charge him with murder in the second degree, not manslaughter, murder in the second degree. And they also charge him with, I think, like reckless endangerment. This is important. And so they give him both charges. Now, when you do that with a jury, the jury is aware that there's multiple charges. And the jury is aware that they can decide if they want to pursue the lesser charge. Except, in this case, since it had to be proven that what he did was negligent for the murder 2 conviction to happen, the judge literally instructed the jury. This is written by the judge in his own writing. If you find that he wasn't negligent in the murder, then he can't be negligent in the action. And if he's negligent in the murder, then he's negligent in the action. See how that works? Well, the jury is hung on the murder charge on Friday. We cannot come to a decision. So the defense says, well, here's what we want to do. Now, understand the trial phase is over. We're just into the jury phase, like the actual trial itself. Closing arguments have been given. The prosecuting attorney says the state would like to drop the murder charge to avoid a hung jury so that the jury can consider the negligent charge, reckless endangerment, whatever it is, independently. The defense attorney, realizing his client is about to walk if they let this go, that if it's been hung this long, it's done. It's not double jeopardy. There's nothing to do with double jeopardy, oops. Objects. And he says, this could create a compromise verdict. And this would be illegal. And this should not happen. The judge, to his credit at the moment, says, you're correct. 10 minutes later, the judge orders that they are to drop the fucking murder charge and go to the reckless endangerment or whatever the hell it is. Negligent, whatever. Negligent endangerment, whatever the other charge, the lesser charge was. 10 minutes after he said it would be wrong to do it, he did it. He said it would be wrong to do it. He acknowledged the defense was right. He turned around and he did it. You see how that works? Then he did something that's happening more and more in New York. On a major trial, he sent the jury home. to come back and deliberate on Monday. This is bad. Generally, in something like this, you sequester the jury in, you don't send them home. Anything with national coverage, you're going to go home and they're going to talk to people, they're going to listen to the news, they can be influenced. So you keep them isolated and sequestered until you send them back to work. You guys, you got a hotel room, see you later. You turn the TVs off so they can't watch TV. When you have a verdict, you can go home. No. He sends them home so they can all be influenced by their friends and families and says, come back on Monday and consider only the lesser charge. After he said it would be illegal to only consider, he said it with his own mouth in his own court, and 10 minutes later reversed his decision. He should be in prison for 5 years minimum. Honest to God, I think he should go to prison for as long as Daniel Penny could have went to prison for that lesser charge. Whatever he put him at risk for, he should serve his sentence. And by the way, the jury returned a dismissal and done. So this headline has not been updated by Fox News because the way they do shit like this, but he's actually been set free now. He's out. He's gone back to his life. Now, this is why I say his problems are not over, guys. He is under civil lawsuit from the family of the guy that died. They're going to sue him, and he probably doesn't really have much money. This is a problem with America, that this kind of shit can happen. You have literally every single person that was there saying the way this man acted was justifiable. And you still end up with a criminal charge that ends up in not guilty and malfeasance by a judge in the middle. And I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Alvin Bragg, the prosecutor under him that actually handled the case, and this judge, all three should be in prison. None of them will suffer a single negative fucking consequence. Not one negative consequence to this. Alvin Bragg will stay a wealthy attorney. I think he's a state attorney general, right? Like he'll stay there. He won't lose his position. He won't lose his job. He won't lose one red cent. The judge will stay a judge until he decides to retire. The prosecutor that prosecuted the case under Bragg will continue to move up the ranks. Nobody will suffer consequences. This is a problem we really have. We live in a system where if you follow procedure as a bureaucrat or agent of the state, no matter how wrong you are, if you can prove you follow procedure, there is no consequence to being wrong. The Pentagon can't find billions of dollars. Who got fired? Nobody. The former president of the United States gets shot in the ear in a way that if freaking remember the dude on was it Mad TV or was it it wasn't SNL. It was either Mad TV or In Living Color. It was Jim Carrey. He did like this guardian angel character and he had a radio and he talked to his mom and shit. Like, honest to God, if a group of guys got like that together and handled security, there's no way a dude would have been 100 yards away from the president of the United States, former president of the United States, with a scoped rifle for that long. They fucked it up that bad. Who got fired? Well, the Cheeto guard lady quit because she came under such pressure. She quit. But nobody got fired. Nobody was dismissed. As far as we know, nobody was reprimanded. And the sanctimonious asshole that took over Cheeto's lady's job, that was the deputy director of the Secret Service, was probably the actual one in charge when it all happened. He got promoted. And he's righteously angry that anybody questions their inactions and their failures and his bullshit trying to get promoted. Yeah. This is a sick country. And that's what I want to get into my final segment for you guys today as we head toward the end of the year. We're not just a sick country in all the ways we talked about today. We're a sick country in the way that we talked about with the American Diabetes Association today. We are an obese country. We are a morbidly obese country. Our estimated life expectancy is lower than just about every other Western country in the world, in spite of the fact that we spend the most money per person on healthcare by a long shot. For all the talk of, Canada or socialist healthcare or state medicine or Finland or Scandinavian models and all this shit, The United States spends more money per person for healthcare than any other country in the world. Just like we spend more money per student in school, and we're like number 33 in the world for test scores, right? We have the lowest longevity of any major nation, spending more money on healthcare because we don't spend any money on healthcare. We spend almost no money on healthcare. Certainly, government money is not spent on healthcare. It's spent on illness management. Remember, I did a show earlier this year about certain very simple philosophical phrases and quotes that once you understood them, everything got more simple. Everything was easier to understand, like the Iron Law of Bureaucracy by Jerry Pournelle and Stafford Beer's statement of the purpose of the system is what it does, not what it claims to do. The purpose of the system is what it does. Jake is pointing out United Healthcare made a profit of $22 billion last year. You know what the honest to God profit of a health insurance provider should be by the end of the year? Probably nothing. That doesn't mean that the CEO that does a really good job can't make $10 million a year. I don't have a problem with the compensation if it's commensurate with the performance of running a company. But how can United Healthcare make $22 billion a year and really be seeing to the needs of its customers when its job is to make sure that its customers get the treatment that they need? And they can't. And I don't even want to make it about United Healthcare. It's not about you. It's about all of them. They all do this shit. They all make shitloads of money while their customers stay sick and die and don't get the treatment they need. But why is it so expensive? Do you know one of the number one burdens on our healthcare system, financially and resource-wise today, is type 2 diabetes and complications that are a direct result of type 2 diabetes. And if you add obesity to that, to the actual obese that don't have type 2 diabetes by whatever luck, it's about half of what it costs us in insurance. And then if you look at the elderly that get picked on as being a burden on the system, you know, having worked in insurance myself for a very short period of time in my life, when you talk to somebody in their 60s, and this is 30 years ago, yeah, about 30 years ago, and you say, well, what medications are you on? Look out, man. It's like, I can't remember. Hold on a second. And they just bottles of shit. And you say, but what's that for? Well, I got rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, so it's an anti-inflammatory. Yeah, you write it down on the insurance form, right? Okay, great. Okay. Well, what's this? Well, the medication for the rheumatoid arthritis gives me nausea. So this is for nausea because of this medication. Yeah. Well, what's this medication? Well, that one sometimes I get tremors. So this is for the tremors. And you go through it, and it's one or two medications that are actually for a problem. And all the other medication is for side effects of the other medication. Or there's like 3 medications to one problem, all which cause interactions and side effects. And sometimes you look at the bottles, and this one's from Dr. A and this one's from Dr. B, and you just bet Dr. A and Dr. B don't talk to each other at all. And neither one of them knows the other medication that they're on. And they just keep throwing meds at them. And here's the secret. If you want to bill your insurance company and they happily pay you when you're a doctor, when you have people on at least 3 medications, you get to bill a higher amount of money that they pay you. Now, why would they do that? Well, one, because they pay dick shit all in cost on your meds, either because they don't cover the meds in some instances, or because they're paying a fraction of what you would pay for the same medication, because they have deals with the pharmaceutical companies to set things up this way. And there's a whole bunch of ass grabbing and ball cupping on the backside going on, and a whole bunch of incestuous money revolving around in a giant circle that they're all harvesting. And this is by design. You do not, I'm back to ADA again, just for a minute here, and DaVita. You do not have the largest supposed advocacy group for diabetes. And here's the thing. American Diabetes Association. I am on the record right now as a fucking journalist accusing you of killing people by your dietary recommendations. I have quite a bit of influence. I am damaging your reputation right now, okay? Because I know that you are in bed with DaVita. And I know that DaVita only makes money when people have kidney failure. And I know that you're telling diabetics to eat shit with added sugar, that you have a cookbook with these recipes in it. If I'm lying, sue me, please, sue me. I'd love to be in court with you guys. I'd love to get discovery open to all of this. I'll figure out how to fund my defense. Sue me. If I'm lying about you, if I'm committing slander, libel, etc., and all the things that I do against you, somebody's blogging me, sue me. I'm not hard to find. They're not going to sue me. They're not going to sue me for the same reason that Dr. Fauci won't sue RFK. Go read The Real Anthony Fauci. It's in a book. RFK has a hell of a lot more influence than I do. RFK has a whole lot more damage that he can do to somebody's reputation than Jack Spirko can. Have you seen Tony Fauci, sue RFK? If I was Tony Fauci and somebody wrote that shit about me, including like doing things like giving AIDS medication to children without AIDS that were in foster care to test it and killing them, and I didn't do it, I'd be lawyering up and suing the fuck out of RFK. I'd be moving into RFK's fucking house if it wasn't true. But if it is true, then the last place that I would want to get to is a courtroom with open discovery of both sides. I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want publicity. I wouldn't want people reading transcripts of trials. I wouldn't want people actually conclusively convinced that the ADA really does partner with a company that does nothing but dialysis with recommended recipe. I wouldn't want that. And I wouldn't want to do it if I were any of these other companies. You notice supposedly all this misinformation about the mRNA vaccines for COVIDs? All these people with all this influence, Del Bigtree, et cetera, where's the lawsuits against them? Ask yourself. This is a litigious society. People sue people for shit all the time on a daily basis, right? Everybody sues everybody for everything. And all of this is misinformation and disinformation and debunked and proven wrong. And you got people out with huge followings, massive ability to do harm by telling the truth, if it's the truth, about these organizations, about these drug companies, right? About these, supposed advocacy groups, what are just basically guilds, i.e. unions for doctors and for medical device makers. All this shit, nobody ever gets sued. Nobody ever gets sued. Why? If you were Pfizer, would you sue me for what I've said about drugs from Pfizer? I wouldn't. I wouldn't sue me. If you were the American Diabetes Association and I came out and said what I said today about you, but you were them, would you sue me? Because I wouldn't do it. You're sick in this country by design. And this is what I've told you. It's not just about the sickness. It's about your place financially. It's about what you believe. It's about how you live. It's about who your neighbors are. All of it is by design. They call it planning, right? Central planning. Central planning. Do you know what you do when you plan? You design. That's what the plan means, is to create a design. That's what planning is. So you're part of a design, whether you want to be or not, whether you choose to be or not. You are part of a plan. Your life has been designed by central planners. When, we talked about insurance, when it comes to life insurance, do you know that the reason life insurance companies make so much money is they're really good at figuring out when you're going to die and how much you need to pay so that they don't lose money when you die? And Bill could get hit by a truck tomorrow, and that's where the life insurance actually does really does do good for Bill's family. And that'll happen, but the number of those are so low that the fact that they can look at you and say, you're 40 years old, this is your education level, this is where you live, you're probably going to make 77 to 81. That's how they set your rate. How do you think they do that? Do you think they just have dudes sitting there with like crystal balls going like, When is Mitchell Lott going to die? He will be 81. Adjust his rate accordingly. No, they just use statistical analysis. If they can tell when you're going to die, do you know what else they can do? Do you know how they know how many, the people that build the private prisons that are basically part of a fascist cabal where you have a private prison system being paid by the state? Do you know how to decide how many prisons to build? They look at how many kids are graduating from school and what their grades are and what the graduation rate is. And that they can determine the school to prison pipeline with that. You're sick in more than one way by the design of other people. I'm calling on you today to change at least your physical health, the physical sickness, to take control of your life. You don't have to do what I do. You don't have to go, damn well don't have to go as far as Ken Berry. Get the seed oils out of your diet. Get the high carbohydrate diet gone. Minimum, cut it below 100 carbohydrates a day. And that is if you're not doing net, if you're doing all. It's a minimum. I think you should do more, but a minimum. Get rid of that shit. If it says high fructose corn syrup or corn syrup, don't consume it. If it says any seed oil, but especially soy and canola, don't eat it. If you want a French fry, get a potato, cut it into pieces, and fry it in tallow or chicken fat or duck fat or anything other than a seed oil. You could still have your French fry if you insist. I have them every once in a while. We make French fries about once every 3 months, and they're delicious, and I make them in freaking tallow. They're absolutely delicious in tallow. Stop adding sugar to things. Just stop. Just quit putting sugar in your food. As far as activity, do something every morning. I don't care what it is. When you get up to go to work, get up early enough that if nothing else, take one walk around the block. Just one lap around the block. One. There's nothing I'm asking anybody to do today that's even that hard. If you're a drinker, cut your drinking back. If you cut it back to like Friday and Saturday night only, and you usually drink every day, okay. If you drink a lot on Friday and Saturday, cut it back to a couple drinks on Friday. Cut it. Watch what happens to you physically. I want you to be physically active. I want you to get into some sort of regular exercise, but at least just take a fucking walk. Every morning I get up, I get my shit together, review some stuff, and I go out and just walk my property. Take the dog with you. Go do something. Lift weights. Do whatever you want to do, but do something. Stop eating man-made not foods is what Ope says. That's exactly what I'm saying. Start cooking your own food. It's not that hard. It doesn't take that much time. It really isn't that hard. But this is the big thing I want to say to you. Shut up. I hate to put it that way, but shut up about what you're going to do on January 2nd or January 1st. Stop it right now. 95% or more of New Year's resolutions don't make it 60 days. And I'll tell you why. Because they're built from excuses to begin with. Because it goes like this. Well, you know, Jack's telling me to do this today, and it's December 9th, and I could start right now. I could make my own coffee and improve my economic health. I could buy $5 worth of Bitcoin instead and improve my economic health. I could get up tomorrow and take a walk. When lunchtime comes, I could take a walk. When I get home from work, instead of plopping into the chair, I could take a 10-minute walk before I plop. Fix my brain a little bit. I could go home. I could go through everything in the cabinets, and if it says a seed oil on it, I could just throw it away. You know, and I could just start writing down how many carbs I'm consuming, and I could keep it under. I could do all that right now. But what's going to happen? Like, see, I got this thing on the 18th. That's only like 9 days away for work, and I'm going to have a party. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to eat cake and shit like that. I'm going to have drinks, and then the 24th, the whole family's coming over. The 25th or whatever, and then you're going to have New Year's, and so I'm going to do all that anyway, and I'm not going to hold back on that. I'm going to enjoy the holiday, and therefore I might as well wait until January 1, which means you're going to fail. I'm sorry if that's not what you tuned in to hear today, but I'm going to tell you it because it's true. So what I always try to do is give you the truth. But if you have the commitment to say now is the time, then when you get to that party, Go ahead and eat some of the shit you're not supposed to. When you go to your mom's and she has this beautiful spread she's done, maybe a Christmas turkey or a roast or something, and there's stuffing and potatoes, fucking eat it. So what? What do you think I do? That's how you're going to live for the rest of your life. Those rare occasions, if that's what you want to do, go ahead and let your hair down. But here's the funny thing that will happen. You'll be like, oh, yeah, man, it's Thanksgiving. I'm going to have pumpkin pie. I'm going to have stuffing. I'm going to have mashed potatoes. And you're going to eat it. You're going to go, oh, wow. Huh. Why am I achy? Why do my joints hurt? Why am I so tired? And I don't mean the after turkey nap, like the next day, even when you go back, you're going to realize how big a problem this really is for you if you start doing it. And it will change you forever. Listen to this. That's what helped me fail for years. I assume, Mick, if you're not talking about what I think you're talking about, correct me. But I'm sure what you're going to say is saying I'll do it eventually because these things are in my way. That helped me fail. That helped me fail. Just getting on with it is what helped me lose 70 pounds. Learn from Mick if you don't learn from me. You want to have fun? Go look up a playlist on YouTube called Jack's Low Carb Journey. Pull up the playlist and start on episode 1. There's about 47 episodes. Don't even listen to them. Just look at my face and jump one to the next until you get to the last one. And it was only, a couple months. It was only a couple months that transformation happened in. Do you want it? Do you want to sit around and you want to keep talking about what you're going to do someday? Do you want to sit around and talk about the government should take this stuff out of our food, or do you want to stop eating it? It's amazing to me. I'll go to an event and I'll speak and I'll say, who thinks that the government should take seed oils out of the food supply? And 9 out of 10 hands go up in the air. Leave your hands up, please. Everyone who can confidently say, if I go to your house right now, I will not find a single thing in your home with seed oils in it. Leave your hand up. Everybody else put your hand down. And there'll be like 2 hands that stay up. So you think we shouldn't eat it, but you want somebody to do it for you. You know what you're like? You're like the person on social media. Then instead of not following the person or blocking them or muting them and just not paying attention, you want someone else to take their post down, or you want them banned and deplatformed because you don't have the self-discipline not to look at their shit. I think most people that are listening to my voice right now, whether it's live or later on a recording, would say that person is a fucking snowflake and no one should give them any air whatsoever. You should just ignore them and they should fuck off sideways until they figure it out, right? And then you're going to turn around and say, but the government shouldn't be putting this in our food. And there's a label you can read and it says this is in your food, and you buy it and you eat it and you give it to your kids. I'm going to tell you something. God honest truth. 5 years ago, if I hadn't made that decision, and I didn't make it as a New Year's resolution, I made it in August, maybe 6 years ago now, I might not be here. I was on a bad path, guys. I knew what not to do. I was really good at telling you what not to do, but I was doing it. I was doing it hard. And the reason I'm so bullish on this is because I believe it saved my life. It certainly improved the quality of my life over the last 5-6 years. I've been doing things that I wouldn't be able to do had I stayed on that path. Because it's easy to just say, oh, it's only this one time. It's only this one time. And every drug addict believes they're not an addict until they accept that they're an addict. Carbohydrates, sugar, and fat combined, especially synthetic fats and modified sugars put together, along with specific chemicals and flavoring additives, are more addictive than heroin or nicotine cigarettes. It's more addictive. It's more addictive, and they know they're doing it to you. They even have a name for it. where you get the fat just right, the sugar just right, and the additives just right. The food industry has a name for this. And if you doubt me, Google it. Bliss point. Bliss point. There is a point where if you get it just right, you know the whole Lay's thing, you can't eat just one? Yeah, that you will keep eating, and you will eat more than you would have, even if it was really good, without this bliss point. This is by design. This is according to plan. This is wired into us in our genetics. And the food companies are scientific companies. They're chemical companies. And that started with a noble goal. One, make money. I have no problem with people making money. And two, it was so we could have food, especially in a time prior to refrigeration. You could ship it across the country and people would eat it and not die of food poisoning. That's why they went into the chemical business, to figure out how to preserve food, right? That's why, you know, I can't remember who it was. Somebody bought out the bird's eye technology for flash freezing, right? Which is probably the least bad of all of it. And it was some lady in New England became like the first female billionaire in the country who bought out bird's eye because making food able to be shelf stable is profitable. But because they continued down that path and they employed scientists, they figured out this technology and this chemistry to make sure that you would eat more. And the reason it's wired into you is very simple. Fat and sugar in nature does not come together often. If you walk through the woods and you find a fig tree, you have lots of sugar and you have almost no fat. If you pull a salmon out of the stream, you have fat and protein and no sugar. If you kill a deer, you have fat in the form of tallow and protein in the form of muscles, and you have fat in the form of organ meats, and you have no sugar. If you find a apple orchard, you know, apples, like wild apples, you have lots of sugar, you have almost no protein and zero fat. The only time that you get fat and protein together in nature will be certain very brief periods of seasonality where you have something like a salmon run while the berries are heavy in harvest. And when you find that in nature and you can't go to the grocery store, your ancestral survival genetics say, eat it all, put fat on. That is a battery. Fat is a battery. That's its purpose. There's a reason. Like if you are 100% lean, you'll die. You need to have some fat on your body. Far less than most people do, but you need some. With no fat, you can't go very long without starving to death. So we're hardwired as a survival of the species mechanism. Fat, sugar together, consume. Doesn't mean it's good for you. It means that in nature, it's self-limiting, and therefore it will keep you alive. Now, there is no point where nature takes corn and turns it into pure sugar like HFCS, like Builder's talking about right now. None. It doesn't exist. There's no world that you can get high sugar from corn. It can't be done without chemistry and without extraction practices. If you go get this like Silver Queen or Country Gentleman, some of the sweetest sweet corn known to man, pull it straight off the cob and straight into steam and eat it. You can eat it till you can't move, till your stomach hurts. And 90% of it, you'll see it the next day when you take a crap. So how much of it did you really digest? But when you turn it into a gick and you put it in something with an artificial fat, like soy oil, you trigger that response. You make fat easy to manage herds of human cattle that you can extract from their blood and their milk like a Maasai farmer. That's what they're doing to you. You don't like me telling you that? Only because you know I'm telling you the truth. If you're uncomfortable right now, it's only because you know I'm telling you the truth. Anybody that wants to debate me on this, as on many other subjects, I am open. And not a screaming match and not us talking over each other. This is what I just for anybody that doesn't know. When I say debate me on a subject, I mean we find an agreed upon third-party moderator. I mean we agree on the debate format. We have opening statements. We both submit questions to the moderator. Let's say 10. They pick 5 of each of our questions. After we answer our questions and they create, let's say, another 5 questions. So we have 15 total questions. We both get to contribute to it. After that period of, and we don't know what those questions are until the day we debate when they're asked. After the Q&A period of debate, we each get 15 minutes to cross-examine each other. And you don't get to talk over me and I get to talk over to you. When you're cross-examining, you get to ask me whatever question you want. And when you're done and ready for my answer, I get to answer it. Time limits. If you exceed your time limit, the moderator fucking mutes you. Then we both get closing statements. That's what I mean by a debate. A professional fucking debate. Something you don't see anymore. That's how presidential debates should be, by the way. There shouldn't be CNN cooking the books on what the questions are going to be. The candidates should be submitting questions for each other. And then they should be cross-examining each other. And time limits should matter and mics should be muted. At least they got that right with the Trump debates, right? That's how it should be. That's what a debate should look like. I'm open to that. If you want to debate me, that the food system in this country is not poisonous to humans by design in that kind of debate, I'm here. I'm here. I got lots of subjects I'll do it on. And there's a lot of people that say they'll debate, but they don't mean what I just said. What do they mean? Oh, no, you're stupid. No, you're stupid. No, you're stupid. Oh, this thing over here says this. This thing over here. No, that's not a debate. That's 2 people shouting at each other. We have plenty of that. I'm talking about professional, academic debate. Bring it. Because I know somebody's out there right now listening to this. Go, he's all wrong. Okay, come on. Let's go. That won't happen. It won't happen. It won't happen. It'll never happen. I still have an open debate call for hydroxychloroquine from 2021, offering to allow anybody, no matter their credentials, to debate me and have 2 assistants and get double my time on each subject. And it still lays unaccepted. There's a reason when people say it's been debunked, it's not true, blah, 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 he's just a hack, he doesn't know anything. And you say, okay, here, formal debate, let's go. Then no one steps up. If that's what motivates you to do this, great. If the fact that I made you uncomfortable is what motivates you to do it, great. If the fact that you already knew it and I'm not making you uncomfortable, I'm just motivating you to do it is what does it, do it. I'm looking at my audience and I am trying to be a good leader of the community. I'm trying to do what I believe needs to be done. I'm trying to say what I believe needs to be said. I'm trying to put my audience before myself because my audience has been with me. Many of you have been with me for 16 and a half years now, which means we've all aged 2.5+ decades in that time, which means we're all getting older, which means many of us are looking at when we're going to start collecting Social Security and being on Medicaid. That's the truth. My audience is aging. My parties, my workshops are a little bit more low key than they used to be because everybody's older. And getting older has a lot of good and a lot of hard things. The better shape you're in, the better the golden years really are and the closest to golden they really are. The problem we have in this country is everything is a short time preference. 20-year-olds don't think about being 25, let alone 55. And that's why they do so much stupid shit. But 55-year-olds look at them and mock them while they do their own stupid shit. And they're a hell of a lot closer to 75 than that kid is to 55. Don't wait. Don't make an excuse. Pick certain things in your life that you know you should and can change today and change them today. And I'll let it go. I soapbox that way longer than I planned. I'm sorry. But I really, I really want you guys to be around for at least as long as I am. Okay. Even if that's selfish. All right. Let's wrap up real quick here. One of the things I want to do is remind you can help the show by doing your online shopping at tspaz.com. I brought this item to you like 8 days ago, the Hamilton Beach 3-in-1 electric egg cooker. We've sold 168 of them as of this morning and sold more today. I've gotten no negative feedback at all on them from anybody. Everybody seems really, really happy, except one guy couldn't figure out the little cup that holds the water with the measurements on. You got to turn it around to find out how much water to use for more eggs. That was the only. It wasn't even really a complaint. He just said it could have been a little easier, a little bit more clear or whatever. And I get it. But this thing has been amazing. It would make a great Christmas gift. It makes eggs super easy to peel. But there's a couple things I want to tell you about it that I've discovered since having it now. One, duck eggs are a little bit complicated to peel. They're a little bit hard to peel. They have a thicker membrane, a thicker shell. They peel just fine, but they don't peel the way a chicken egg done in this thing the right way. I mean, it just peels. Two, I think I'm going to buy one of those little hole poker things to poke a hole in the top of the egg, because occasionally an egg cracks and, spooges out the side. I just did like 10 for my wife to make eggs for salads. And that happened to 2 of them. It doesn't matter, because if they're not deviled or whatever, you don't really care that happened. But it seems like a thing to probably make them easier to peel too than they already are. Number 3, I have yet to use the poach feature and been really happy with it. So the first time I poached eggs in it, I felt like the yolks were overcooked. So this morning I tried it again and I reduced the water, and I still felt like they were the yolks were not soft like they should be with a poached egg. They were like half cooked. They were like perfect for a soft boiled egg or what have you. The other problem was the first time I used the egg poacher thing for the 2 poached eggs, they stuck really bad. This time I put a little bit of lubricant on them and they popped right out. So that's the solution to that. Because when you make the omelet with the omelet maker, they just pop out and it works perfectly. But the other thing is, when I've done the poached eggs so far, I've used duck's eggs, and the protein in the egg white of a duck egg is a little different than that of a chicken egg. That's why you cook them slower. So it may just not be optimized. I might have to keep playing with it and dial in what is the settings to poach a duck egg. But if anybody's done chicken eggs with the poach and you're happy with it, let me know. I'd like to know that, or if there's any mod you made. Now, the making hard, medium, and soft boiled eggs and the omelets, freaking amazing. Check this thing out. Again, almost 200 of them sold. No complaints. That says something. Another thing, like I said, it'd be good for a Christmas gift. I've had a couple people reach out and say, am I going to put out a list like I usually do of Christmas gift suggestions? It's almost done. I was this close to putting it out before I started, but there's a few more things I want to add to it. That will come out today. I'll delay the Daily Mail for the show and all, and it will be in the Daily Mail. It will go out on social media and everything. I got a bunch of stuff that you can look at for that, including some stuff that I don't actually sell. Mike says the recipe looked great. There's a recipe with the write-up on this. That if you have something like it already or you don't think you need it, you could still use the recipe. It's a deviled egg using avocado instead of mayo. I just made another batch of them. They're freaking dynamite. Jalapeno, guacamole, egg yolk, and bacon. I mean, they're like a jalapeno popper deviled egg. They're just fucking amazing. And I got this thing because I wanted to make those, and I hate peeling eggs. So anyway, the other thing you can do, of course, is join the Survival Podcast Member Support Brigade. I appreciate if you do that. And otherwise, I'll say, we'll finish out this week. No more lectures. But I wanted to give you that today. It tastes better, Jake. I'll just leave it at that. And it tastes better. That's what it does. It's also unless you're buying really good quality mayo, it's a much better quality fat, because your mayo you're eating, Jake, is probably from Hellman's, and it's full of soybean oil that I just told you not to eat for 20 minutes. Anyway, Jake's always got those questions. Oh, we have questions. I'm going to lightning fire these questions in super chats, and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap up for you. But I don't want to ignore these. Better Built Dogs, super chat, $20. Thank you, man. Thank you for being one of the best male figures in my life for the last 11 years and helping me get the balls to start business. Dude, thank you. Thank you. That's the kind of shit that like humbles me. When somebody tells me like I'm a male role model for them, that's never what I thought would happen when I started this journey 16 years ago. Thank you. That moves me. It really does. Legendary Farm and Homestead says all crypto besides Bitcoin is fake and gay with a $3 super chat. Thanks, Legacy. I appreciate you. It might not be the way I would describe it, but yeah, Jake says, there are reports and articles predicting a giant dip lower than 50K. Some actually say as low as 10K. Is there a legit reason probably for this to occur? No, I don't think there is. Every time Bitcoin goes on a bull run, there's a bunch of articles that say it's going to go to zero or it's a bubble and what have you. I think that, we have notoriously had roughly a 70 to 80% pullback on corrections off of a cycle high. So if we were not to break out, then it would be reasonable to expect around a $20,000 pullback. If we are at a cycle high, then I think the pullback, if anything, will be muted from that. I would say you're more likely to look at this cycle high being somewhere between $1.50 and 200,000. And then you're looking at a pullback from whatever that number is at about 70% of that number. I personally have called the top at 214,000 for the cycle. I don't think you should invest based on that number. I just think it's fun to throw those numbers out. And I have thrown those numbers out for about 6 years now. I've called tops and bottoms of certain cycles, and I've been mostly, not always, but mostly right. But you've read articles and comments. Who the fuck hasn't? Go read Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff went from it's going to zero, it's vaporware, to its public enemy number one. He's having a mental fucking shutdown right now over it at 100K. When it hits 1 million, and it will hit 1 million, it's inevitable. When's the only question. I think he might, if he's still around, just have a heart attack and die. Poor guy. Legendary Farm and Homestead. Car prices are still ridiculously high. Used cars are still almost double the price they were 5 years ago. Should I wait to buy a truck? If you can. If you can, that market is going to crash. It has to eventually. There is so much inventory sitting there. There will be a come to Jesus moment. The problem is sometimes you need a vehicle. So, is it a great time to buy a house right now? No, but if you can and you need to buy a house, then you buy a house. So that's very situational. But I do think the deals are starting to come back already. We're already starting to see short duration leases with really decent terms. Not great, but decent. And if you take a high value return vehicle, you sometimes can get a guaranteed minimum on its value at the end of the lease. That's what I've always done with my leases. Not only do I buy the right vehicle when I use a lease, but I also get a minimum return value based on the vehicle being at the mileage they specified. And most of them do this anyway. You just want to check and see if they did. And so I've seen some, now it depends on what your credit is, what your down payment is, but I've seen some really reasonable, like 24, 30-month leases. And so that would be a way to maybe mitigate that if you are in that ballpark on purchase value, like what's going to cost you. What's gone, and it sucks, is the days you could go buy a decent car for $5,000. I mean, it wasn't something you're going to be real proud of. Well, I mean, you could buy something for $5,000 and drive it for 5 years. So $1,000 a year to drive a car is cheap. I remember being a kid. Now, there were much shittier cars than I'm talking about a $5,000 car 10 years ago. But I remember being a kid and being able to go buy a car for $300, $400, $500. And it was a total piece of shit. But you could drive it for 2 years. So if you could drive it for 2 years, who gives a shit if it's a piece of shit? Texas Plant Company, what do you expect for BTC in the next year? I expect this coming year will be the cycle high, and it will correct at some point. I think it will go later in the year than typical for a cycle high. And I think that the pullback, unless we really rock it up to my number, will be muted compared to other pullbacks. I think there's also a possibility that people that I've said are wrong are right, and that the consistency of the 4-year rage and pullback might be broken. Not gone, but broken from that very consistent shoot up, 80% back, shoot up, 80% back, shoot up. Like, we might be done with that. There is a lot of stability. There's a lot of liquidity injected into the market. And you don't just see it on the up, you see it on the lack of up and the lack of down. And what I mean by that is, it used to be if somebody came in and bought like $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, it moved the needle. MicroStrategy just bought another $1 billion+ of Bitcoin today, this morning. It did nothing. So the volatility is how you have those big rises and those big pullbacks, and everybody's shrieking about volatility. Your volatility has gotten smaller over time. It's just, when do we hit the dramatic reduction in volatility? But we're already at a point right now where $1 billion can be dumped or bought in a given day, and it doesn't move the needle. If you would have told somebody that was going to happen 5 years ago, and some of us did, they would have laughed at you, and they did laugh at us. So that's what I expect. But I think I would give it a 30% chance those people are right, and a 70% chance that what I'm telling you is right, that we're still going to have at least one more cycle with major up and major pullback. If I didn't think that was the spread of the odds, I'd be, preaching from the other Bibles, so to say. But I think that's where we're at now. One more, Art by Lee Murphy. Can you count all the ways crazy how Canadian politicians are talking about seizing what remains of guns owned by civilians and shipping them to Ukraine? I did see that. I can't say much about it because here's the thing. I don't really care about Canadian politics at all anymore. I mean, I feel like the people of Canada have a choice to make, and they consistently make the wrong one. They keep saying they want more freedom, and they keep voting for Justin Trudeau and his ilk. And that's their choice. And I'm not going to sit here and rage about Canada. I'm not going to complain about what other people are doing. What is the saying from the Bible? Don't talk about the speck in your neighbor's eye while you have a log in your own, right? Because that's where I think we're at with this. Christopher Martin said, okay, I'll beat up shitcoins one more time just because you people ask. I'm hearing a lot of good things about Stellar Lumens and Ripple, like it's the new Swift and the Orange Band is going to make it go to 250. You know what, Chris, I'm not even going to say it. If you take that advice, I'm just waiting for it to come through. This is my response from now on to things like that. Of course you're hearing it. Of course you're hearing it. Because the people marketing it are putting out the information so that you'll hear it. It's not very hard to get an article published or a tweet shared anymore. It really isn't. It really isn't. If you put your money in that shit, I'll give you one more segment. You guys want one more segment before I go? Like a last call, like a recall from a concert where they leave and then they come back and do one more song? All right. Shitcoins versus Bitcoin. Bitcoin, stick your money in it, put it into cold storage, and don't fuck with it. That's the whole formula. That's why all this other shit exists. That's why all these talking points exist, right? If you need to spend it, you should treat it like it's your retirement money, and you only spend it if you really need to. You're building an asset portfolio long-term. You don't sell appreciating assets unless you have to, or unless you've done the math and like, this will carry me until I'm dead and beyond, and I'm ready to start living life that way. That's what you do, okay? And if you think Bitcoin needs to be spent, there's lots of ways to do it without tapping into your stack. Don't tap into your stack. That's the whole formula. And that's why people want to go into shit coins and altcoins and all this other shit, because they want something to talk about. They want something to earn money on without investing their own money. They want to be paid to sell you a pile of shit, and they don't care that you get burned. It doesn't matter, because the marketing agency that represents the shit coin paid them to tell you to buy it. Okay? That said, shit coins are volatile, and volatile is a way to make money. And the shit coin is a casino. And if you buy it because the news says now, you're already too fucking late. You should have bought it before that news came out. Like the people that are making money off your stupidity make their money. They buy it, then they put out the FUD and the bullshit and the fake news, and then you buy the fucking news and they sell the fucking rumor. Okay? Because the news is the rumor. They buy the rumor, sell the news. This is an old formula. This is a new formula. You buy the rumor that you're going to create. You create the rumor that creates the news, and you pump and you dump over and over and over again. And when you've pumped and dumped your shit coin to the point where you can't pump it again, You fucking roll out a new one with some cut and paste fucking code. You put together a website that can be put up in 5 fucking minutes from a template and a few graphics that you add to it. You say it's like Bitcoin better, but it's faster and quicker and whatever. And you say that you have a partnership with Microsoft because you sold Microsoft a fucking softball 5 fucking years ago or something. You create a bunch of shit and you milk the fucking plebs again. Now, if you want to play in that casino, you can, but you better, people say Jackie used to be a shitcoiner, now you're tired of shitcoiners. Even when I did fuck with some shitcoins, what did I always tell you? If you would not go to Vegas and take that money on a single fucking spin of the roulette wheel and say, I'm betting it on black or I'm betting on red, spin that wheel, and if it came up the other side and you lost, drink your one free fucking martini and go out and have a steak and say, fuck it, it was fun. If it's not that kind of money, do not put it in shitcoins. Shitcoins are like venomous snakes. If you know what you're doing, you probably won't get bit, but it only takes one time, especially when you don't know what you're doing. That's my sound off for you. If you want to invest in shitcoins after hearing that, HFS. You don't invest in shitcoins. You gamble with them. With that, gambling is not the way forward to build wealth. Go look up Miyagi Mornings, right? My Miyagi Mornings playlist, and look for an episode that says building wealth is boring. Every proven method to build wealth is boring, and it works. You want excitement? Go for a run. Go hunting, climb a mountain. You want wealth? Boring, tried, and true. Take care, guys. I'll catch you tomorrow with another one.